to the Stars of the Shrines, the podcast where celebrity energy meets ancient spirit. Here, we go beyond the headlines and into the unseen, into the ancestor stories, the hidden lessons, and the spiritual forces shaping the lives of the stars we think we know. This is a space where the intuition speaks, where the ancestors whisper, and where every conversation becomes a doorway into the deeper world. I am your host, Wunam Nikky Love, and tonight we open the shrine. But before we open the shrine, we have to give a call to the ancestors, okay? So ancestors, known and unknown, mothers and fathers of our blood, our spirit, and our destiny, we call upon you tonight. Walk with us as we speak truth. Stand with us as we reveal wisdom. Guide every word, every thought, every breath. May the space be protected, enlightened, and empowered. And may our voices carry your strength. And may the message reach those who need it the most. Ashe. Ashe, Ashe. Welcome to the Stars of the Shrine. And tonight we are going to have two special guests. One of our brothers, Usiku L, and one of our elders, Lester Loving. And they will be sharing with us the places of power. Now, I'm not going to get into it and what's going on and how to talk about it and all that stuff. I'm just going to let them take it away because I heard of some of the places of power, but I really don't know where they're at. So we're going to go ahead and introduce our elder and our brother Usiku L. Blessings, family. How are you?
Islam, peace. How are you? Peace, peace, peace.
I'm
Islam. Good. Yeah. Going into the New Year's is the perfect time. Definitely.
I say happy New Year's to the ones who celebrated, although we know that's not our New Year's, but happy New Year's to all that's listening.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of look for the alignments anyway, so there's alignment. Where's that alignment? Some of the alignment is the dog star is at one of its highest points during the New Year's, and then it starts to drop down until it disappears from our horizon. So I kind of look. I always look for the alignment because I know generally they overlay their holidays over our ancestors knowing exactly where the earth was in relationship to the sun and Sagittarius. So you kind of look for that. And back in the day, you couldn't get me to get a Christmas tree in my house, but I kind of relax and just look at the science of how beautiful we are built and how beautiful we are a oneness with everything around us. And the more we start to learn that, then the more our power grows.
Wow. Very true, very true. So, is the elder on with you?
I'm trying to get him now. I resent him the link.
Okay.
The last link that I got from you. So I'm hoping he had called me, so I know he's waiting for that. Let me see if I can just put my mute right quick.
Okay. All right, everybody. If this is your first time to the Stars of the Shrine, we want to thank you for tuning in and let you know we have special guests tonight that will be teaching us the places of power. And I'm thinking, is it around the United States or around the world? But, as we do know, we are the ones who are connected to these places. Like I always say, when you walk outside, you walk into yourself. So we're truly connected to these places of power, not aware of it, and we're not able to, hone in on those powers if we're not aware of where they're at. So our elder brothers are going to be teaching us these places of power. Now, there's one place I did hear of, and one of the places, I think of the mounds. They have some mounds here in Georgia, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to let my brothers, hold a little bit more into those places like that. Okay, so we got them. We have them here.
Okay, cool. And peace. And family, one of my main teachers, I would like to introduce you, Baba Lester Loving. And he's into the science aspect of the metaphysics, which they're all one to me. You know what I mean? And so he's into trying to help us understand or the breakdown of why we use certain elements to help enhance or exaggerate what we're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like that. And that's basically places of power. But I want to start because the Spirit gave me 2 sentences to give to everyone. And the first sentence is, you got to believe and practice in you. Because places of power are good, but they really work when you believe that you can make them manifest. So you activate them opposed to them more so activating you. You know what I mean? And so it's always good to believe you can accomplish and manifest, but then, because you're following and honoring your ancestors, it's good to practice. So they can enhance you, they can teach you special little tricks that might be work specifically for the type of DNA that you have that's different from my DNA. And so it's always good to practice. It's great if you can be absorb everything that happens. Like if you have a day where your gifts are just gushing, then you go back and analyze, like, what did I eat? Who did I meet? Who did I talk to? You see what I'm saying? What time of day was it? And at least try to go back 3 days, because that's all about learning. Because the number one power place is you, your chakras, and then maybe some of your immediate family around you or where you live. That's the number one power place. Baba Lester, you have something you want to add?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello and thank you for inviting me on your show.
You're welcome.
People a lot of times get intimidated because they hear the word science. And especially in the 20th and now leading into the 21st century, science hasn't been good to most people, and especially people of color. We've been experimented on, from the food to our environments, the clothes we wear, et cetera, so on. So, first thing I want to say is that for me, science was not the periodic table or the chemical formulas. It was, how does that data better allow me to move through the world efficiently? And so there were a lot of things that were quote unquote scientific, meaning Western science can verify it, and that was good and all that was all well and good. However, there was a bunch of things that my grandma told me or I experienced outside of the realm of conventional science, and I knew that to be true or valid for my experience itself. So what I want to say is that we're here to exhibit certain principles and properties, and places of power enable us to, gain the energy and the fortitude in order to express those things.
Okay.
All right, so since Wunam, you mentioned Atlanta, we'll start there as a power place, and we may go a little international, but we're going to try to stay where you can jump in your car and get to it, right? Uh-huh. And so when you look at Atlanta itself, it's on a very ancient ley line, period, the whole city, and the city is full of ancestors. So it's more ancestors than just the Lady of the Lake out in
the Lake Rainier.
Yeah, and that's my girl. I love her. I got to go see her this year. But it's more because there's ancestors all around because of how indigenous that Atlanta was, and still is. But when you look at Stone Mountain, which people automatically go to, then you're looking at a combination of 3 things that exist in most power places. There's quartz and granite. They have Stone Mountain water, which is a very expensive water. So they have a water spring that's a natural spring that comes up under that spring, and then they bottle it, right? And then when you go into the park, you see there's a lake, and then there's like a fountain where there's spraying water, because waterfalls are very important, because that that makes the valence electrons, which is the outer electron on the water molecule, move back and forth. So that's when you start getting these micro portal. And so when you like take off your shoes or wear the right type of shoes, you ground and you become something like an antenna, like what they said Elon Musk is trying to do to us. And that helps enhance or multiply your intentions. And it still take practice, but it definitely, because you're on quartz. And then with Stone Mountain, it's one of the granite mountains that is mixed with tourmaline.
Oh, really?
So it doesn't particularly have to be cleaned, because tourmaline is a natural cleaner.
Right.
You see what I mean? And so, like, when the brothers went up and walked, and I'm not knocking them, I love the brothers, but when they go up and walk to the top of that mountain, the last time they went, it had rained. So they should have been stepping in the mud puddles. You know, take your shoes off, get in the mud puddle, because that's the water that the ancestors provide. You see what I mean?
Right.
And so then you got the duality of earth and water, right? And that helps you connect, because the water runs, even though you don't see it, water runs through your soul and it cleanses. And that's what water does. It aerates your spirit. You see, like that. And so that, and then understands, like, okay, it rained. Them goes, put 1 foot in the puddle, 1 foot, because you're in a power place. That radiates. You know what I mean? And it radiates. Like, there's some people that do agnihotra, and they say when they burn agnihotra, it radiates out into the last ionosphere. And so you're radiating, you know, and when you have that many melanated people, you know what I mean, and they doing the duality of earth and water, then it can bring some change for us and some protection. You know, I believe it. Baba, go ahead. You got.
Well, okay. Well, I just want to talk about, I just want to point out that when we use the term places of power, people look at it or conjure it up as being somewhere that has a lot of energy or collective energy over a period of time. And if they go there, they can gain some of that energy or wisdom.
Okay.
So I just want to babble for a couple of minutes about this process. You know, as I studied, I'm just a study of energy and how energy works. And so I noticed over time as I was studying that there were certain places throughout the world where people would make journeys to, some were for healing, some were for community or spiritual connection, and some were for upliftment. You know, but, you know, there are certain places that were just known, like Mecca, you know, certain churches were known for healing. People go to certain areas in Arkansas to sit in the waters to soak up minerals. You know, so there's different levels of places of power. What I want to point out is the process. And by that I simply mean that most people think, or they conjure up, that they're going there to gain something, you know, usually energy. And while that is true, the process comes down to the understanding of the principle of charge and discharge. And I learned almost everything that I needed to begin my understanding by studying the ancient Egyptians. They understood that there is an energy that comes through the entire universe, and it goes through our planet. It goes through us. It's constantly moving, and our bodies take this energy in. Okay, and as long as it's taking this energy and letting it flow through, you know, we are what we call healthy. Well, we have all kinds of blockages and distractions and food and stuff nowadays that interfere with that flow of energy. So what I'm saying is the Egyptians built certain devices and certain temples because they knew that by going there, we would go through first the process of discharge, letting off of the energy that's blocking us and allowing that universal energy to flow through. So when we go to most of these places of power, on the way to them, whether it's a temple or a mountain or a stream, there's usually accompanying either vegetation or small stone markers or wood. There's stuff that helps us to discharge the used up energy that we have. And discharging energy goes from a negative charge to a positive charge. Okay? And that's the flow of electrons. So, like, we all familiar with this in terms of walking across that carpet and putting our finger on the lock, and that little spark comes. That's the discharge. And now, once we've discharged the energy, now we're ready to take in whatever energy this place of power gives to us. And that is the charging energy. And charging energy flows from a positive charge back to a negative charge. That's the female. And the final thing I want to say is that when you have the currency of charge, that means that your current reverses its flow, and if we go back to our full or most energetic state.
Okay, all right. That's interesting.
But once again, these things are easily proved by, not by taking a meter out there and seeing what the difference in the voltage or something like that. It's easily proved in terms of, when I would go to certain places, I come home and when I got home, I was more energetic than when I left.
Right.
So I'm just saying that when we learn, not even science, but if we just understand the flow of energy, how energy works and how we can best take advantage of it. One of these principles is the principle of charge and discharge. And you have no better example than the Egyptians. Well, we got two examples that I can mention right off the bat. One is the pyramids are a discharging energy.
Okay.
And so therefore, in terms of the shape, the energy, the flow of electrons is going from the top out and upward. Okay? And so in order for it to have the balance, they built what we call the obelisk.
Okay.
And so the female energy would go from the top of the pyramid over to the tip or the top of the obelisk, and that was the discharge. And there's an obelisk right here in Central Park called Cleopatra's Needle, and I would climb up on it, and as long as I was on the east side of the obelisk, that's the side for discharge.
Right.
And let me give a practical example. If I'm really angry or something happened, I'm just like, I climb up there and I get on the east side first.
Uh-huh.
And that would pull all that negativity out of me.
Right.
And then I would climb over to the western side, and the western side would now replenish the energy that I need to go about my thing with a level head.
Okay.
The other example I want to give is I want people to imagine, if they've ever seen documentaries about Egypt,
yes,
there's certain temples that have rows of facing sphinxes or rams. And when we walk through, because each of these animals are facing each other, and most people just walk down that thing thinking nothing of it. But as we walk past each of those things, it has a discharge. It allows us to discharge our energy at a specific frequency, and then it puts new energy and it replenishes the energy, and then we go to the next level. Mm-hmm. And so by the time we walk from the beginning of that procession down to the temple, we've raised our frequency by several thousand hertz or measures of energy.
Well,
In other words, we're ready to go into the temple being purified.
okay. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So when you speak of the temple, you're talking about the actual pyramid itself?
I'm saying no, not the pyramids, but the actual temples.
Oh, okay.
Not only does every pyramid have a series of temples that were around it. A lot of them are not there anymore. But I'm talking about, Egypt built hundreds and hundreds of temples. But
Right.
all I'm saying is, if we went into the temple and we weren't at our balanced frequency, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of the full charge or the information that's waiting for us.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, once again, Brother Usiku would get on my case if I didn't mention the fact that if we think of the difference between then and now, it's not just that they wore, purified linens and ate healthy food. It's also the fact that they made their architecture to allow them to stay in this balanced state. And Brother Usiku would be exactly right for me to mention the fact that if we just look at our architecture now and the environments that we live in, there's not enough charge and discharge, and it's actually draining our energy.
Here in the States, right?
Yes, here in the state.
Yeah, so right. I am familiar with the one in Central Park because, I pretty much spent a lot of my life in Manhattan. So I'm familiar with the one in Central Park. So, yeah. Yeah, I know about that one.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll finish.
I just want to say that the only little Lester, big me, the adult, the so-called adult me, is just like, oh yeah, that's science. But little Lester, like, no, let's build one. So all I'm saying is we can update this information or this knowledge that they left us to make modern versions of these things. They don't have to be as tall as Cleopatra's Needle.
Right.
You're going to say too?
Well, I was just saying that, and you can see it in that, you go back 20 years ago, everybody didn't have quartz in their house. And now, there's a lot of, quartz has become popular because people are claiming that ore or trying to be at a higher space or trying to do healing. And so there's a lot of people that, quartz isn't as rare as it used to be. You know what I mean? People have
once again,
they walk.
No, but once again, I have to say this because this is just a few weeks ago, I celebrated my 50th anniversary of studying quartz and gemstones. And well, thank you. And the main question that I had, I'm reading all these books, and some of them were spiritual, and some of them were metaphysical, and even some of them were medical. But they were all ascribing different properties, healing properties to these stones. And the question this is 50 years ago, when there was no New Age then, and the question I asked myself is there any scientific proof or knowledge that these things are capable of doing these things? And of course the joke was on me because mankind has spent most of our time studying rocks, and as we got into the 20th century, we were able to study them on an electronic level that we weren't able to do since ancient Egypt and Atlantis. The point I'm making here is that the first property that we learned in modern science about quartz is that it instantaneously charges and discharges. Just it being in the presence, whatever energy is around it, when it gets into that field, it automatically tries to it helps to even out that person's energy field. Just by its presence. It's not a metaphysical thing, it's an automatic.
Right.
So for instance, like I was saying, so when you take your walk up Stone Mountain, right, when you get to the top, if you put your foot in water and then you put your foot on it, then you're going to automatically balance yourself.
That's right.
You see what I mean? Because it's going to as you walk, you're going to start to balance yourself. But when you take it, and when you look at certain elements, they're consistent around the world. Like if you go to the mound in Carterville, Georgia, which is up above Atlanta, the river is in the same direction of the Nile River.
Really?
I mean, that's what our ancestors did. So yeah, so when you go up there, like this full moon, it would rise in the middle in Carterville of Mound A, which is the biggest mound. Every full moon it rises in the middle of that in January, right? So they know our ancestors, we had that for that thing 10,000 years old, right? It's still accurate, right? But if you walk toward the river, you'll be walking east. Just like if you was looking at the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And that's what our ancestors did. You see what I mean? So then when you look at where is the water in the fountain, at Stone Mountain, it's probably on the east side. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, like, remember the ceremony we did, Wunam, when we went down and they had the quartz house, right? Remember, and the water ran through it, but they had a way of running water through that thing when the people was there that knew what it was about, was doing ritual there. They could channel the water through that, and it's those same elements as water. There's quartz. You see what I mean?
Right.
Like that. There's sand. Certain things that have quartz in it, certain limestone, and you start to see those same things when if you want to go and meditate on the New World Trade Center. You're going to get the same thing. It's water. There's quartz. There's a square. You see what I mean? And those and these are the things where they have preserved a certain knowledge. We like to call it our knowledge, but it's just basic knowledge, right?
Right.
And they put them in places where they can elevate themselves, or if they want to put them there to send out energy to make people sluggish or whatever in New York, and they know how to do it through the World Trade Center.
Really?
Because they know that's a pyramid. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you a question, and let me ask the elder. Now, one of the things that I experience when I go back home to New York, it's sort of like my energy gets heightened. I'll give you an example. So my cousin used to tease me all the time. He said, every time you get in my car, my electricity messes up in the car, right?
Sure, that's right.
So what my, theory was maybe, coming back home, because, we walk everywhere. The train system is underground. Maybe that's what gives me more power. So tell me how true is that? Because every time I go back, I can touch like he had a microwave. He said it didn't work for a whole month. And when I came, I wanted my pizza. You know how we love New York pizza. Right. So I came, got my pizza. I said, give me the plug. Let me plug it in. So when I plugged it in, it started working. He said, how did you do that? It hasn't been working in a whole month. So can you explain that to me?
Can I start first, Usiku?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, once again, I do not want you people to think that I'm all science, meaning that, I demand, a Western explanation for everything. The person that leads me to understand all of this stuff is Little Lester. And so, even when a lot of people pick up when people pick up a quartz crystal, a lot of time they will feel energy from it. If you just, even if you just put it in your palm, a lot of people can feel energy from it. And so when I was first studying about quartz, they were talking about the fact that Western science had discovered that anytime quartz goes under pressure, anytime quartz is squeezed, electrons, or what I'm fond of saying, negative ions, come out the tip of the quartz crystal. Okay? And we know that negative ions are very good for our health. We have too many positive ions in the machinery and the buildings that we live in. The point being that New York City was formerly part of a mountain range that went all the way from Vermont all the way down into Pennsylvania, and Maryland. And the thing about these particular mountains is that their inner core, these mountains, their inner core, instead of having rocks all over the place, a lot of them had solid, they had a solid collection of quartz. It was a giant piece of quartz that had accumulated over thousands or millions of years.
Okay.
And so a while back, the giant ice sheet came down from Canada. This ice sheet was a mile high.
Uh-huh.
And as it pushed down through the terrain, it slid all kinds of rocks and boulders from upstate New York and Canada all the way down to here. And if you go to Central Park, next time you go to Central Park, you look at some of those boulders. Those boulders aren't from this area. They were pushed down hundreds of miles. So anyway, the point is that this giant ice sheet came along and it cleaved off. One of my favorite words. It cleaved off. It literally cut off the mountain and pushed it to the east. And the remains of that mountain is what we call Long Island.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so now where the mountain was, and that mountain was taller than Everest, by the way. Okay. And so once it cut the mountain off, now there was just a solid bedrock of pure quartz. And the next time you come home, just look at the skyline in the 30th Street area of New York, where you see all those big buildings, Chrysler Building, Empire State Building, all that's built on quartz. That's why they built them there, because it's one of the most stable and solid things. But once again, every time somebody walks in that building, every time somebody walks on that street, all the cars that are going by, they're all pressing on that quartz. So, and when you come here, your body immediately goes into charge and discharge. And each time you go through that charge and discharge, it's raising your frequency. So, for several years, people wouldn't let me touch their appliances because I would immediately turn them off.
Wow. Okay. So now, okay.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. No. I was going to say that's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why.
I want to add something else to that charge and discharge, right? So you got this train going through the tube. Well,
right.
New York City trains have something called dynamic braking. So they not only use power, but when they brake, they put the power back in the rail.
Right.
So you're putting the charge and the discharge in the tube that's under that whole city of quartz.
Right. That's right.
It's a powerful city. I'm telling you, this time I was up there, and I touched that World Trade Center because I purposely knew how they built that sucker, right?
Uh-huh.
And I lasted 10 minutes, and I had to let go. And that was because I was intentionally opening my spirit to it.
Right.
I lasted 10 minutes. Next time I go, I'm going to be in better health. And you know what I mean? But so, and the thing is, they understand it, but we got to understand it so that we know, like, okay, I'm in the power place. Let me change my frequency. Like, when they go to that tourist trap at the World Trade Center, they got all that black quartz, and then they got that inverted square, like making, but it's inverted with a waterfall. Then they know what kind of energy they're getting off the people.
Right.
See what I mean? And it's on us. I'm a believer that we have to have our spiritual energy before we're going to be free. I just believe I believe it's that important that if we ain't in order spiritually, we're going to still be talking about why come black folk can't get it together. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So the question I have is, how you said they have to change their frequency. So tell the listening audience, when you say that they have to change their frequency, what do you mean by that?
I can give you one way.
Okay.
One way is through repetitive breathing.
Okay.
Like when you purposely
Amen.
You meditate at a certain rate. You see what I mean? You can go slow, raise me up, or you can go fast, raise me up, right? Well, that's dominating the frequency. And then at some point you'll find, and your audience will find that you're going to go into it. The more you practice it, the quicker your brain waves are going to change.
Okay.
You see what I mean? Because they'll go, as you practice it, I think it's theta. Ain't a Bible lesson? They'll go into that theta wave, right?
Yeah.
And so theta does different things, but it'll help you. It'll energize your chakras. It'll actually energize and charge your most powerful feature. Let's say, if, like you saying that you can generate electricity, boom, then it's going to energize it. Or let's say, like me, I'm a throat chakra person. So there's days when my tongue sizzles.
Okay.
But I have to practice, and it'll be, with, and I got a friend, it's so funny, I got a friend, y'all, and he can't understand why every month he have to buy a new phone, and you just can't get him to accept, but it's the spiritual side. You know what I mean? It's like, man, look, somebody playing with my phone. No, dude, it's you. And he can't because he runs away from spirituality, which they got a lot of people doing. But go ahead, Bible lesson.
Okay, well, first of all, I was gonna say something, but I have to acknowledge what you just said. Everything begins with the breath. Everything. Okay. I was just in the subway yesterday, and okay, so I should start this ranting and raving I'm about to go into by saying, as I studied these different books that I had great difficulty with as a child, but I plowed through them, and every once in a while, it was like looking through an entire department store for a royal suit. And so there was a lot of just, torn jeans and raggedy looking t-shirts. But every once in a while I found this gem. And one of the gems I found in this book, it said, higher frequency has dominion over lower frequency. And so I said, okay, wait a minute, hold on. And then I asked the universe, how do I make this work for me? And the universe said, well, if you're in a threatening situation, okay, and this man was yelling and screaming on the subway last night, and I was sitting next to a woman that was going to the airport, and she was obviously from out of the country, and she just looked at me, and I could tell from her face, she's like, what should we do? And I just started breathing more slowly. Okay. Now, in physics, there's a lot of things that are, the opposite of what it would seem to be. Okay. But by controlling my breath, I was actually raising my frequency. I wasn't letting his screaming, bring me down. And so as I slowed down my breathing, the woman next to me calmed down.
Okay.
And then the people across from us looked at both of us and they calmed down. And eventually the man calmed down. Okay. So we, whatever way we have to get to a higher frequency, sometimes it's breathing faster. But it's always allowing the body to, get the proper rhythm and the proper frequency so it doesn't add to the negative thing. The thing I wanted to say is, first we need to stop taking in negative energy. Okay. In other words, if I used to live in West Virginia for a moment. And so I came back to New York City and I picked up a newspaper and I'm reading it, walking down the street. And by the time I got to the end of the first block, my energy level had gone down.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, how did it, what's happening? And then I was like, I'm taking in negativity. I'm reading the headlines of this and that, so I was like, let me close this thing. Now, I Now, I just happened to be near 42nd Street. And right off of 42nd Street, there's an international newsstand, and they sell newspapers from all over the world.
Okay.
So I get to see the headlines. You know, something happens, but I get to see how people are thinking about it all over the world. Well, they had this one newspaper, and it was only 20 pages. I bought the newspaper, and it only had positive stories in this newspaper.
Wow.
And by the time I got to page 4, I was crying tears of joy. Because I was reminded that people in the world, there's people doing stuff all the time. We only hear about the negative stuff.
That's right.
And we're taking that stuff in, and it lowers our frequency. You know? So we have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to appreciate, meaning we have to take greater value to our own rhythms. And if everybody else is enjoying somewhere, but our rhythm is saying this is draining me, then we need to leave. You know, we have to honor our own frequency, and that means getting used to or getting familiar with what's good for us and what's not good for us. You know, I love the spiritual truth of babies. Because the baby will take in the food, and if it doesn't align with what it's feeling right now, it spits it right out.
Very true.
Other people stay at that restaurant, knowing the food is going to make them upset later, and they like, well, I stood in that line for 20 minutes. I'm going to enjoy this. No, leave.
You said something, and we're going to take some questions in a minute. So if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to chime in or raise your hand. And Ogun Shola, I had to mute you out. I hear you back there pounding something, but I muted you out. So if you have a question, just let me know. But we had the experience. I did this experiment years ago on Facebook. And what I did is I actually posted 10 things. I posted 10 positive things and 1 negative thing. And do you know that everybody picked out the negative thing and ignored all the positive things?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're right. And that's good to hear, because every time you put on the news or you put on the TV, it's always something negative. There's nothing positive to say, hey, this made my day, Right. So you're so right. And, that's one of the things, as a matter of fact, speaking about that, we just had the monks walking through here in Georgia. They're walking for peace. So they're supposed to be walking all the way to D.C. So, I'm kind of curious about that, because they do say when they do that, there's something else going on behind the scenes that we need to pay attention to. So how much
okay, no, I'm jumping right in. Right in.
Okay, good.
Okay. Good. Toward the end of World War II, we'd already, the Germans had surrendered, but the Japanese and the Japanese army was still fighting us. And so they decided to drop the atomic bomb, the very first bomb. And this is, the first time they hit was Hiroshima, or we call it, Hiroshima, but it's Hiroshima. And so there was a group of monks that every morning, this was their ritual. Every morning they would walk through this certain section of Tokyo. Okay, and they would chant. They do their chanting as they walk through this section. There is a picture, a photograph that somebody took minutes after the bomb was exploded, and you can see people. You can't even see the people. They've been vaporized, and so their essence has been fused into the buildings. You see all kinds of destruction. The cars are melted, all this stuff. And these monks are just walking through. They are not touched.
Wow.
They did not get the devastating radiation burns that the other people got. That's a real life example of how higher frequency has dominion over lower frequency.
Right. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Okay. You're familiar with oh God, it just went out of my head. It was a neighborhood where a bunch of white people beat up a young black kid that was walking through the neighborhood. I can't. It was years ago.
Trayvon Martin, that dude, was it Trayvon? No, that was one dude that he beat up.
No.
Yeah, they killed. Well, they said they killed.
No, but what was the name of the neighborhood?
I don't know. It was in Florida. I know that.
Right. Okay, it was Howard Beach.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I think I remember that one. Yeah.
Right. It was at the time. It was a very famous thing because they just these are kids. They're all kids. He was a kid, and they were kids, and they ran into their houses and they got bats and they came out and they beat them. Okay, and so I immediately called my friend, and I got a 5-gallon. A 5-gallon metal bowl, like the ones that, where they mix all the giant salads.
Mm-hmm.
And I put in a pound of sage. And we drove to Howard Beach. And we opened the back windows of the car and drove around the definition of Howard Beach to save the entire neighborhood.
Wow. Right.
We got to change the situation. That's what the brother keeps saying. We can't just sit here and go, oh man, this man is taking over our neighborhood. We got to do stuff about this.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is learning about how energy works and how we can make it work for us. Let's go back for a moment to Cleopatra's Needle, the obelisk in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's part of a chain of monuments. There's one right across from the Flatiron Building, and the third one is down near Battery Park. So, but if we were to go to Cleopatra Needle and then to the one on 14th Street and then to the one in Battery Park, we'd see that they're spaced apart, and they represent the 3 pyramids of Egypt.
Okay.
So somebody with insight and the money to do it is recreating their own energy field.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right. And so therefore, as my grandma Cindy would say, what's stopping us?
Well, now let's go back to this because we do predictions. We did our 2026 predictions the other night. I do them every year. The last time I was in New York, they was making fun of me. I'll never forget it. They was making fun of me because they had me on film. I don't know if you're familiar with Brother Sonnet and them on 125th Street.
Yes.
Okay, so I was there and they was laughing. They said, Nikky Love, since you predict stuff, when do you see, what you see is going to happen in New York? And they thought it was funny. I said, New York. I said, they're going to have an earthquake right here in New York. I said, the water's going to start rising. So they thought it was funny. I get a call. I come back from, New York back to Georgia, and I get a call, and everybody on Facebook, Nikky Love, you said it. They had an earthquake. You remember the earthquake they had?
Yeah.
From Virginia, and everybody felt it in New York, and everybody kept, laughing, thought it was funny, thought I didn't know what I was talking about. But I bring that up to say that I do see that New York I keep seeing a lot of water coming to New York. So do you think that they're doing that, trying to line these energies to pretty much, keep away the things that nature's getting ready to bring?
They're trying to.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. Right. Okay. Well, now, anybody has any questions, go ahead and you can ask your questions or call in, okay? You all can call in.
Can I do
Yeah, go ahead.
the question?
Yeah.
Because I got several, but the ancestor lane, I believe we should be remiss in not in our ancestor line, because there's certain graveyards that, I call them ancestor lane. There's certain graveyards that are very, very powerful for helping you to enhance your power, like that. You know what I mean? I just find, and it's funny too, because I resonate more with the ones where I know historically there's a lot of black people out there than ones that's historically a lot of white people, and I don't know why, because I don't I believe white people have spirits. And souls. I believe white people have souls.
Well, I do too. I think that. Yeah, we can have babies that don't make our soul.
I know that.
Right.
That when we go unto our ancestors, it can be very powerful. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes that energy radiates out, so you can feel it even before you get there. That one, and then if you ever get a chance to go to the Star Chamber in Nashville, Tennessee, it's worth going to that Star Chamber that they built in Nashville. It's a very powerful place.
They call it the Star Chamber?
Between people that know, they call it the Star Chamber. And it's, like that. Because I met a sister that was in the market next to the park, and she was like, oh yeah, y'all at the Star Chamber. Because not a lot of black people go up there, but it's like maybe it's 100 foot in diameter, and the floor is quartz, red, white, blue quartz. And then on the quartz, there's limestone towers. And within each limestone tower, there are bells that are hooked to an organ. And the towers are arranged, if you stand in the middle, then your voice echoes. So they got that energy design where your voice echoes. And so when they got that thing on, it resonates, and you had a frequency, and they got quartz, and then they got one brass rod that goes down 15 feet in the ground into the very center where you stand on it. Yeah. So that's why.
Okay, so once again, my brothers, thanks for the backup. Like on the police shows, they always go for backup, right? Okay, because you just described what I talked about. The bells act as the discharge. They let off the negative energy, and the limestone acts as the recharging agent.
Okay.
Yeah, in other words, people know what they're talking about and what they're doing. I mean, once again, I'm from the older school. Meaning that when I was growing up on TV, a third of the TV shows were westerns. But the thing that I got from all those shows, I mean, of course, they had the shoot 'em ups and all that. But every town, every one of those small towns had a central building that had a bell.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And we know the science of the bell being disruptor of lower frequencies. And the thing about the bell, and particularly the gong, okay, is that when we hit a gong, the harmonic overtones. In other words, you start out with just a few frequencies, but then they overlap. And so eventually what will happen is they will create or recreate, however you want to say it, all the frequencies in the audible range and beyond. So just hitting that gong, it allows all those frequencies to come out, and the body will take in the one that it needs for either discharging or charging.
Okay. That's interesting.
You gotta understand that these people know that, because our downtown Nashville used to be 12 blocks of burial mound. So when you go on one side towards the Star Chamber, is black marble. And on the other side, they left some of the burial mounds. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Yes. So they understand. Then you take that, and then you go downtown New York to the World Trade Center. You got black marble. You got water. You see what I mean?
Yep.
It's there. If you hit Nashville, they got this big ball. It's probably about 8 foot in diameter with it's like a globe etched into it, but it rides on an inch of water. You see what I mean? So they know, and supposedly Nashville have more Masonic monks than any other place in the United States. So people be sneaking there doing ritual, and they're Masonic monks. It's like a Masonic headquarters there. So but that used to be our Natchez Trail, where we left Natchez, Mississippi, and we would walk all the way back up to Nashville. It was like Jerusalem. We went there to die. And the Natchez Trail is like the Blue Ridge thing. They'll give you a ticket now if you pick a flower. So they protect that walkway where we used to come. And then where was the other one? Atlanta. We came out of Atlanta. They said back in the day, Atlanta even had pedestals. So they had growing pedestals where they, how like in Peru they got the growing pedestals where they formed the side of the hill. They said Atlanta used to have that back in the day too.
Well, you know that Atlanta used to be Cairo. If you look at the exotic map, it'll show you on the exotic map that Atlanta was Cairo. And they also found many years ago when they took it off real quick and fast, they found, I think it was Emory University that was doing some excavation and found a city underground that looked just like Cairo, Egypt. And they put it on the news. They was talking about it. They was, happy about it. Then they took it off real quick and you hear nothing else about it.
It was the Tartarians.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised,
I
but
just watched on TV today about Atlanta is one of the only cities that was built on top of an ancient city. They know it. There's more to it than just the underground.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is when I moved to Atlanta, I would walk around and my spirit knew. I said, this land used to be a part of Africa. I would look at the trees. I felt the energy. And literally one time, I was in a certain part. I think it was in Riverdale. And I was driving. And I swear to you, I kept seeing like pharaohs. And I was seeing all of these different, high priests. And I was even seeing Vikings. And the spirit was showing me these things. So, people think you're crazy when you say that, but I don't care. No, I don't care. So I'm saying this land has a lot of energy, a lot of powerful energy to it. And what's crazy is I was watching PBS years later. Had to be about 6 years after I moved to Atlanta. PBS showed how Atlanta, Georgia fit like a puzzle into North Africa. So everything my spirit seen when I came here picked up, it was correct. So Atlanta has a lot of power. There's a lot of people, especially people of color, of our color, black people that are moving back to Atlanta because they're being called by the ancient ancestors.
That's from an earthquake, but yeah, they are moving them back. Yeah, definitely, all over.
What earthquake? What earthquake you talking about?
There's going to be another one.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right.
It's going to be more disastrous, because I asked the ancestors. I'm like, there's a lot of people that's going to die in that one, and they were like, the people that want out, they're going to get out. I shut up. I ain't asking no more. When you see. Now you can go to a Bronx party in Atlanta. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people out the city, like that.
You're right, because on the predictions, that's what I seen, Usiku. I seen that there was going to be another earthquake and it was going to take place on the East Coast, coming down from New York down, all the way down. I did see that. You're right. The same thing I seen.
Yeah.
So.
And it's, y'all gotta listen. You gotta, if the spirit tell you to move in line, go. Because if they put it in your heart, then just go. Just move in. Okay. Go ahead. You was gonna do questions, but that, I just would say if you get a chance, family, then go to a sacred place on the ley line, the Snake Mountain in Ohio. What's that park on the west side of New York? My partner, he didn't even go up to the park on it's on the west side of New York. You know where the guys was in the park fighting from that one movie, The Warriors? Remember that park? Yeah. He go to that park. He was like, dude, that park he brought me some dirt back from it. Cause I try to get people to bring me dirt back when they go to, cause the dirt still resonates. Right?
Sure. Right, yeah. What park is he talking about? What park? I'm trying to see what park he's talking about.
It's like a park up like in, I guess like in the 120s, but it's on the west side of Manhattan. It ain't in the Bronx. It's on the west side of Manhattan. It's a park over there that almost goes down to the water. It goes down to the highway. It's a park over there.
I'm trying to think of.
I have to ask him and then I'll text you. But yeah, when he go home, he go to that park. And then there's a story about the lion that left Montana and was coming back to Manhattan. And that was in our lifetime. That was probably about 7 years ago. And they know that lion left his pride and came across the Dakotas and Michigan, went up into Canada and came down. They killed him on the Bronx Parkway. Yeah, he was coming back to Manhattan. Yeah. So,
they always killing something.
Okay, hold on. Before you answer the questions, since we talk about the big man, Manhattan, you notice that all the streets in New York are like a grid. You know, stuff goes from east to west, and the avenues go north to south.
Right.
The exception to that is Broadway.
Really?
Okay, Broadway goes down the west side, then it makes an angle.
Right. Right.
So it cuts through a lot of those streets. Okay, well, Broadway was the original Lower Manhattan, what we call Wall Street, and on to the tip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of that was heavily forested. So heavily forested that if you put your arm on one tree and you reach the other arm, you're going to touch another tree. I mean, there's just nothing but, giant collections of chestnut trees and nut trees down there. And so the antelope and the deer would come down from upstate to eat on this abundance of stuff. And so the mountain lions would come down to hunt the thing. And Broadway is their track. That's the old mountain lion path.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just saying, you told the story about, my brother told the story about the mountain lion. The mountain lions, they were here. They're their ancestors.
and that's when that was one of the signs that let me know the energy was going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, ultimately, it was completed by a cat that got lost in Denver, Colorado.
Right.
And when they looked up, that cat was in Manhattan. So they didn't kill the energy. You know what I mean? And
right.
Owners don't know how that cat got. And that's that feline energy. You know what I mean? And they don't know how that cat got there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when we're looking at the energy that they preserve is about our return. And my nephew came over the other night and said, I know that girl was in the bathroom, y'all. It was so funny because he had been over my house and too much. He was like, I got to come over. And he was over a partner's house. And the partner had a master bedroom, and the partner's daughter went into the bathroom in the master bedroom. And when he looked up, the girl was back downstairs playing, And he was like, I know that girl did not come by. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You know it. And I was like, nephew, well, if she showed you that, you got to talk to her to let her know you're gifted. Because she may not have nobody else to talk to. Because she just showed him that she can teleport.
Right, she can teleport.
You see what I mean? And so that's what our kids are doing now with this energy. We got to look for it. Because in 2026, that's what they're doing. That they're on the one. And these young kids are coming in,
Yeah.
Well, never lying. Because I can't understand how my grandson, he told me he's going to the gym. To me, it's going to take a minute to walk down there, through there, go to the gym. He'll call, how you get there so quick? You got there in 5 minutes? I said, you're right. He's like, what, did you teleport from the house to the gym that quick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. These kids a lot more of their abilities are going to be exposed to.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so right.
They can't stop it. They can't stop it. You know what I'm saying? Because, you can get over there. I ain't going to be political, but our kids we just need to know what's coming and be able to watch. Like I told him, just sneak to her and tell her you do it too. So that if she needs an outlet, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because he has energy. He deals with energy. So she saw his energy. Sometimes people can see your energy and your light in your chest, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then they get attracted to you like a magnet. And so I was telling them just so that if she doesn't have an outlet with her parents, she got one with you. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Because we got to protect them in some way.
Yeah, we got to, Because they'll be trying to get them. But all right, family. So let's see if we have any. Does anybody have any questions? If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and ask either one of our brothers questions or both of them. It doesn't matter. If you have any questions, ask the questions. Now I do see. Let me see. We got Ogun Sola on the line. If you want to put a question in the chat, you can ask a question. Let me see. Hold on. Okay. Let me see. Nobody has no questions? All right, family. I guess I ain't got no questions. So, can you leave my audience with a last minute, blessing of knowledge? Both of you all. Can you leave them with a last minute blessing and something they can do, pertaining to what you were telling them as far as where the power places are, what they can do? Can you all leave them with something like that?
Sure, go ahead, Mama. You can go first.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm going to try and combine what we've both been saying. We already know that there are many recognized places of power. People, go to these places, and they build up stuff, or over time other people hear about it. And the more people go there, the more energy these places build up on its own. The thing about churches and mosques and places, synagogues and places of worship, part of that power is the fact that they have an actual structure that will hold on to the collective energy as it builds up over time. Mm-hmm. So 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you think about all the different people with all the different prayers and aspirations, all that's being contained in there. Okay? So I want to say that right before the end of the year, the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, put out a new function that the government does. And that is, they made a geological map of every state in the country. So you can go to the site, USGS, press in mineralogical expressions or whatever, however they phrase it, and you can find out the rocks and minerals that are in your direct neighborhood or direct town or in your state. A lot of what African American people are encountering right now is a need for them to take care of the properties that some of our parents or grandparents own. And so this will be a good time to look on that map, see what kind of gemstones or what kind of rocks and minerals are on that land, and go onto the land and sit and communicate with the rocks. Because quartz has a tremendous ability to hold on to information. That's the chip in the computer. And so we can review our past, we can view our ancestors, and more importantly, we can review the history of that land, and it will tell us what the next step, what's best for keeping that land vital and attracting more beings to it. I'll just say it like this. My final thing is, we humans and most animal life, mm-hmm. We live at the bottom of an ocean of air. So we're sort of the catfish. We're bottom feeders. Okay. At the same time, we live in the penthouse of the living beings that live below the ground. And what I want to say about that is there's way more life below the ground than there is above the ground. Mm-hmm. So just consider that in terms of, not just pouring chemicals and stuff into the ground.
Okay. Now, real quick, we got one question.
Okay.
She says, can we recreate this at home by putting crystals all over in one particular room?
Oh, come on now. That's a setup question. Okay. That's literally a setup question. It was It was in 1986. It was in 1986 that I came up with my first version of how, a lot of people at that time wanted to have a pyramid that they could sleep in or, meditate inside of. And here in New York, as you're probably familiar with, people don't have a lot of space.
Right.
And so I was forced to go inward and come up with a different system. And to answer that sister's question, if you just cut out a series of 3-inch triangles out of cardboard, you don't have to paint them or anything, and you just glue them up into the corners of your room so that the points of the triangle are at where the groove of the wall is and where the two, lines of the ceiling are. Okay. And then you take your quartz crystals and put them in water, glass containers of water, or if you want to get more energy, you wrap them with insulated copper wire and you tangle them in the water. That will create a field that will neutralize the harmful effects of the corners and most of our appliances, and it'll make your entire space be energized.
So that's a good question, but now what I'm curious about, so you can use that to kind of block the energy that comes from any of your electronics.
Well, once again, we don't deal in the science of blocking stuff. We deal in the science of letting it work for us.
Okay.
And so, you're right. I started off with trying to block stuff, but then the universe said to me, of course you can do that, but it's going to take a lot more sophistication and a lot more work to do that. This is the simplest way to do it. And what you're doing is you're taking the positive ions, because it's not that positive ions are bad for us. It's just that we have too many of them. All of our equipment is generating these things. Our TV, our refrigerators, even our sheetrock in our houses are generating all these things. So what it does is those triangles attract negative ions. The negative ions combine with the positive ions to make a tiny molecule of water which floats through the air and makes us stronger and breaks up smoke, dust, and pollen and a lot of chemicals in the air, what they call aerosols.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now.
Oh, no. And I just want to say, and, there's always more sophisticated ways of doing anything. But this is something that anybody can afford to do.
Years ago, I used to have a show called The Fifth Dimension. Creation in Nature was with Dr. Andrew Quackwood. I had a show called The Fifth Dimension with Dr. I lost his name. Okay, he told us about the diodes. You know who I'm talking about?
Right. Dr. Blair.
Yeah, right. Dr. Blair. That's it. I couldn't think of it. But we had a show called Creation, Fifth Dimension, and he told us about those.
Well, see, once again, my version of this, okay, it's just a slightly more sophisticated thing. But what I learned from Dr. Blair, enabled me to make each one of those triangles into a diode.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm using his technology.
Right. How can we do that with the crystals too? We can make a diode.
We don't need to. The crystals, as long as the crystals are suspended in water, it's generating the negative ions we need.
Okay.
So, for example, if you just get one of those candy dishes that my grandma used to have, and you fill it, don't fill it, but you put sand halfway up, and then you stick the quartz crystal so that the point is facing up, and you fill it with water. Not only is that going to generate negative ions, but as quiet as it's kept, we got the screen on the window in the summertime to keep the bugs out. But when the air passes through that screen, it breaks up the water molecule and creates positive ions. So having that bowl of water in front of that window will rebalance that out and keep that, because you want to have air moving through your house or your apartment. Because moving air always has water in it, and moving water is what generates these negative ions. So waterfalls in the house, the somebody was talking a little while ago about the stone that's like an inch above the water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we know that the most powerful generator of negative ions in nature, other than the forest, of course, because it's so big, but if I wanted to go to one place where I'm getting the maximum dosage, that would be a waterfall.
Which I always go to. I do all my initiations at the waterfalls.
Of course you do. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I went into the river. I was in the knee deep in the water, and the water was coming down, and all of a sudden I see these boulders. Mm-hmm. They're way bigger than a bowling ball. Mm-hmm. A basketball. They're boulders. Mm-hmm. And the water was coming down, and they started rising up, and they were about an inch from the edge of the water when they finally rose up. Wow. So what I'm saying to you is, both physically and metaphysically, when we get the right balance of negative to positive ions, we will be learning about levitation.
Okay.
I don't mean in a book way. I mean we will know that we can do that.
Yeah. Right. I know what you mean. Because, I always say that our DNA is reactivating. So as the DNA reactivates, we're becoming more alive beings.
Hold on. No. I'm so glad you said that. Okay. Newsflash. Okay. Mm-hmm. On January 2nd of every year, the Earth is closest to the sun. Mm-hmm. We are 3 million miles closer to the sun than we are in July. And because of that closeness to the sun, we pick up an energy that activates what we're supposed to be doing for this next cycle as we go around. They just announced this thing called I motif. Uh-huh. So the letter I, small I, dash motif, M-O-T-I-F. Uh-huh. And I motif is a whole new type of chromosome DNA. They just announced this. Instead of going into a spiral, 4 of these little pieces come together and they tie themselves into a little knot. Uh-huh. And so I'm just reacting to what you said. You said you was going to activate other parts of us, our DNA. But we just discovered we got a whole other part of the DNA we never knew about.
Really? Wow.
They just announced this like 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah, I read about it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what is it called again?
I motif. The small letter I dash M-O-T-I-F. I motif.
Okay, I motif. So there's another part, and this is not including the junk DNA, right?
Oh no, there's no junk. Right. Okay. Well, once again, they called it junk DNA. They called it that for 40 years. And when I asked the leading scientists, why do you call it junk? They said, because we don't know what it does. And so I was like, that's not junk. That's the lack of knowledge. Okay.
Exactly. I write it in my book and tell everybody it's not junk DNA.
Right. Yeah. Look. We got junk food, but not junk DNA. No.
Right. Exactly. Wow. Well, do we have any more questions, family, before we go? We just had some people kind of join late, so if you have some questions, and we would discuss them, we have our brother Usiku L and Elder Lester Loving, who has shared many places and many things, and many places you can get power. Okay, and also shared some good wisdom and information. And I know we just had some people join you to come back and listen to the show, but you missed out on some very, very good information. So if you don't have any questions, then we're going to ask our brothers again to, leave the listening audience with some last minute wisdom. Okay, I guess we don't have no questions. Y'all shy tonight or something? Nobody got no questions? All that good information? All right now. Okay. Well, my brother Usiku and my elder Lester, can you give some last minute wisdom to the people listening?
I'll share mine, especially since he hit on us closer to the sun. But I'm finding that we're going in into an era of positive duality. And that's going to help carry us. And so they've been even having me look. They had me start to look at black holes, which is really deep because we're closer to the sun than the Sirius, which is another black hole. You know, is hides in the place. But they had me dealing with the swan, which is Cygnus, which is a black hole. And Cygnus sends X-rays directly down to manifest within our spirit and to help activate our DNA. And it's kind of done through duality. Like when you meditate, you have like two positive subjects like blue and red, you know, and then just meditate on it, whatever breath rate you want. But that's a duality, or water and love is duality, because if you put love energy with water, you're going to get something positive out of it. And I'm finding that that's a part of the duality, that where they're moving us to, because a black hole just definitely gives light. It absorbs light, but when it's next to a star, it definitely gives energy and life to us. And then it'll help us with elevating. So Cygnus is usually, lately is high in the sky, around 1:30, like that. And it brings in energy, and if you catch it right, whatever you're thinking about starts to manifest. And that's how much X-ray energy it sends in. But it'll definitely be at its peak again February, around Groundhog Day, because that's when it'll be working in conjunction with Sagittarius A, which is the black hole that's at the center of our universe. So it's duality like that. And usually a black hole has a dwarf star or something next to it, and that's where they're showing the duality. So to me, family, I would like to give y'all that and that power, when you can do that, wherever you're at your power place. Because one of the hazards of working with semen is it pulls your hemorrhoids down. And that's because it has certain things in it that gravitationally pull to ground you. So even if you can't get to a power place, sometimes it's been barefoot on cement will help ground you and extremely pull things down, you know, so that you can elevate. So duality, you know. Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay, well, Happy New Year to you too. Hold on, y'all, but we can't go yet. Wait. We gotta get. Okay, what's your last minute words, Lester?
Okay. Okay. We just went through what we call the winter solstice.
Okay.
And it took me many years to realize that at the winter solstice, the moon is highest in the sky. Just like in the summer solstice, the sun is highest in the sky. So right now, the sun is as low as it can get in the sky when it goes across in the daytime, and the moon is high in the sky. In that same regard, Cygnus, the swan, is telling us about migration. You know, that a lot of the birds are migrating at this time. And so from a metaphysical standpoint, you know, we have to, you know, when things get cold, you know, the birds go to where it's warm.
Right.
But I'm not talking about the destination. I'm talking about what happens when they fly through the sky. These suckers are flying at night, you know, being guided by the constellations and the starlight, by the way. But they fly at night, and sometimes they fly all night. Okay? But the point I'm trying to make is that in order for them to fly all night in hundreds of miles, they have learned the ability to close one eye and shut off one brain and let that rest, and then they open that eye and they shut off the other eye.
That's interesting.
So I'm saying that all of us need to think about how to apply that knowledge. That, you know, there are times when I need to shut off my logical brain in order to get through the information from the other's brain, and vice versa. You know, like if people for years used to tell me, "Oh man, I don't want to work with my right brain, you know, with my left brain." And I said, okay, come work for me. And when I hand you the paycheck, you won't be able to tell if that's $2, $20, or $200. Everything has a use. Okay? Everything has a use. You know, you can't live in hot temperature all the time. You can't live in cold. You know, we need that that.
So it has to be a balance, right?
Right. Well, see, once again, the prefix, when you see a word that has the word bi in it, okay, that means that there are two energies, but they're working together.
Right.
Okay, when you see the prefix di, okay, that means you got two energies that are opposing each other or being repelled from each other.
Right.
Okay? And the Egyptians, many different cultures, but I study the Egyptians because I make Kermit. The Egyptians were always talking about the reconciliation of opposing forces.
Right, and that's where the Ma'at comes in the balance, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. You know, I meet all these men that say, I'm a man. I'm like, you're 23% female chromosome and 23 male chromosome.
Exactly.
Right there. Come on. So I'm just saying, for us to embrace who we are, learn all about who we are, and use that's the thing I want to say. Learn to use coincidence.
Okay. Learn to use coincidence.
Well, no, meaning that, most people, or if you look in the dictionary, it says that coincidence is an event that happens, but it's not connected. And these days, because we have all of these things prompting us, like, if I look up one thing on my Facebook, then 20 ads come for that thing. In other words, this AI is suggesting stuff to us, and we have to learn to discern when it's just somebody prompting us to buy, to sell something to us, and when it really is a meaningful direction that our universal self is saying, go this way, or check this out. Learn to use coincidence and not just always think that it's random.
Okay, that's good wisdom. Again, we just had some people join. Do you have a question before we go? Okay, everybody like that? All right, well, I really appreciate both of you all coming on and sharing this wisdom, and we definitely have to bring you all back because there's some more questions I had, and they didn't have questions. They were just listening. They probably just intrigued. But I definitely would love to have both of you back on so we can actually talk about some more things, because you guys have a wealth of wisdom that we all can learn from, And I want to thank you again. And before we go, family, we're going to close out the answers to prayer. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Stars of the Shrine. And we're going to ask our ancestors and let them know that we thank them. We thank you for walking with us tonight. As we close the shrine, may your guidance continue, your protection remain strong, and your wisdom echo in every heart that has listened tonight. May the path ahead be clear, and may truth follow us until we gather again. Ashe, Amen Ra,